And welcome to Mondays Beyond the Mic. This is the space where we go beyond surface level topics in relationships. This space provides us with an opportunity to delve into more personal or profound aspects of our lives. This platform allows women and men to come together so we can understand each other just a little bit better, to have healthy relationships. So, thank you if this is your first time here, and we thank you for all those that are returning with us on this Monday evening. As a disclaimer, we talk from our personal experiences. So please don't email us talking about we told you what to do. That's not what we did. This is why we have professionals up here to help us navigate these muddy waters. So before we continue, co-host, would you like to say anything to the people?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. And we want you to remember, we want you to like, share, subscribe, and we absolutely love the super chats. So looking forward to the comments.
And just a little house rule. Our number one house rule is respect, respect, respect. Everyone's opinion will be respected on this platform. And as you see, we have our special guest here, like we said, a professional. So, co host, would you like to do the honors and introduce our guest?
Absolutely. So we'd like to welcome Ashley AG. She is the owner and founder of Peaceful Minds PLLC. She is a clinical social worker, therapist. She has an MSW, a LCSW, and an LCASA. It's a lot of letters. Who specializes in stress, relationship issues, and substance use. Throughout her career, she has had the privilege of working with diverse populations, but her true passion lies in supporting individuals navigating life transitions, whether it's fostering healthy relationships, navigating career aspirations, supporting clients during their um, prenatal period, or overcoming stagnation. Her goal at Peaceful Minds is to create a safe and nurturing space where individuals can explore, heal, and thrive during times of change, empowering them to embrace life's transitions with resilience and a peace of mind. Welcome.
Thank you for that introduction.
How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. Just doing all the things before I got settled, so I'm feeling very relaxed right now.
Okay, so we thank you for being here. We thank you for coming to the platform to speak to our audience and speak to us, to bring your professionalism to this platform. So tonight, let's get into it. Tonight's topic is the Love Lab. That's the topic for tonight. We will break down the chemistry of love and relationships one experiment at a time. I need y'all to follow me where I'm going with this. In tonight's segment on Mondays Beyond the Mic, we're mixing trust with a dash of emotional support and balance and independence and togetherness, like a perfectly blended love potion. Oh, love potion. We got love potion going on tonight, y'all. Whether you want to take preventative measures before getting into a relationship or you are navigating life's challenges with your partner, we're here to help you master the formula, from handling transitions like a pro to creating a safety net of trust and emotional support. We'll give you the tools to thrive. Let's use our imagination. I need you to act like you are actually in a love lab. So grab your goggles if you have some goggles, get your lab coat, and let's discover the science of lasting love. So that's our topic for tonight. And before we get started, co-host, would you like to say anything?
Again, we want you to like, share, subscribe, and give us some super chats. So, you ready to get started? All right, Ashley. So, we're going to ask, so building trust is our first. So, the definition is trust is the foundation of any healthy relationship. It involves believing in the reliability, truth, and integrity of your partner or the other person. Trust is built over time through consistent, honesty, and respectful actions. So that's our definition. So the first question is, what are the key behaviors that help build trust in a relationship?
So that was a great definition. And I think that a lot of the components that are needed to build trust were included in that definition. Some of the things that I think of whenever trying to build trust are consistency, honesty, integrity, competence, empathy, and accountability. The list can go on, but I think that it just depends on the person and what they are looking for as well, because everyone has their definition of what they need when it comes to building trust.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So let's go to question number 2. How can couples rebuild trust after it has been broken?
When it comes to building trust after it's been broken, it once again depends on the two humans. I think that we all have our non-negotiables and things that we are not willing to stand for, and then you have some people who are more accepting of certain things. And so, in reference to how you can rebuild trust, I think the first thing needs to be that both people have to be ready to work together to build the trust. One person has to be willing to listen, and the other person has to be willing to try.
Okay. So if I can just add to that, I think a part of it is like you're saying they have to communicate, right? And people need to understand what trust looks like. Just to kind of sum up a little bit what you said, what someone's definition of what they need from their partner and trust may look different from person to person, but these two people need to communicate with one another so that they're on the same page and they understand the needs of one another. Did I
That's
sum that up?
accurate. You did. You did a great job of summing that up.
Well, thank you so much,
And then
Ashley.
even within that, I would venture to say that partners and just individuals in any relationship needs to understand the other's communication style when it comes to having that communication. I think it was last week we talked about certain people needing more time to digest. I'm one of those. So if something, depending on the level of, let's just use offense for the lack of better words, depending on how I'm feeling emotionally and how much damage has been done to me, I may need a couple of days before trying to hash that out. Where some people may need to get it out right then and there. So for me, if I had a couple that needs to get it out right then and there, I would need to explain to them, listen, I need a couple of days so I can talk to you respectfully, so I can get my thoughts together, so I can see what part I played in it. So there's different communication styles I think that individuals should know about themselves.
Yeah. And if I can add before I go to the next question, I think it's being honest, in that relationship when you're starting, because I think a lot of times, especially women, I think we can fall prey to conforming, you know. So he's consistent. This is how he is. And we will pretend we're okay with this. And internally we're not, and then later on he's shocked because he's trying to figure out what's wrong with you, because this has been the same way we've been doing this, and now you're like, oh, I dislike this, and now you're saying more, or you're saying things you never said before. So I think especially as you mature, and I'm going to say as you become more seasoned in life, that you need to show up and be who you are and understand your non-negotiables up front, up, and not to pretend for the sake of a relationship.
And that's a good point because a lot of times us as women, and I'm men too, but I'm going to speak as far as women, we suppress to your point. And then he moved on, and then something happens 2 weeks down the line. Now everything is coming out. He's like, okay, what happened? Because all I didn't do was take the garbage out. But now you're talking about what happened 2 weeks ago. And it's like, where's this coming from? So again, yes, communication is key.
Absolutely. So the third question, in your experience, what are some signs that trust is lacking, even if the couple hasn't explicitly acknowledged it?
I would say the first sign is constant doubt and suspicion. So, frequently questioning the other person's motives, behaviors, and honesty without evidence or even signs of lack of trust. Difficulty with being vulnerable. So, just being like reluctant to share feelings, thoughts, or personal ideas that can indicate fear of being hurt, judged, or misunderstood. Um, Over monitoring. So, excessively checking on someone's whereabouts, actions, and communications. Um, Fear of disappointment, assuming the other person will let you down or fail to meet expectation, often comes from a lack of trust in their reliability. Emotional distance, such as Coco just spoke to, which withholding affection, avoiding deep conversations, staying emotionally detached can become a defense mechanism to avoid getting hurt. Insecurity or jealousy, um, frequent misunderstandings, avoidance of commitment, difficulty forgiving, like holding on to the past, mistakes or transgressions, and just being unable to move forward can signal unresolved trust issues. Lastly, I would say seeking external validation. So you're constantly seeking reassurance from outside resources, opposed to just trusting the relationship or person. That can be a sign of lack of internal trust.
That is so good because something you said in there I find kind of comical. And this is something I used to do. So y'all know me, I'm totally transparent. That part is not having evidence, but knowing. And sometimes it was the furthest thing from the truth.
Mhm.
So, what does that look like when you're actually counseling someone? What is something you tell them when they come to you? And it's like, no, do you have evidence? No, I don't.
So often people will build a story. I build stories.
I think,
And
yeah.
I encourage people to say it out loud, because when you say it out loud and really play the whole tape from beginning to end, you will actually end up checking yourself and you won't go forward with that thought. But the longer you allow it to stay in your head and build and make it make sense, it will make sense to you. But the moment you say it out loud, I don't trust this person who's never hurt me, but he didn't pick up the phone and he works late. And now I want to end the relationship with him, and you just really invalidated the reason that you don't trust this person. But previous relationships can cause many people, including myself, to make you have trust issues with someone else. And it's just known as a trigger. And it's just something that people have to work on and heal within themselves. But I think the first step is just saying it out loud. And like I said, that can sometimes take people out of that mindset and kind of take a step back to say, okay, is this real or am I just creating a story?
Yeah. And
I'm sorry.
that's a good point because that's something I had to learn. Girl, get out your head because this I can create a whole story, the beginning, the middle, the end, and run with it. And then, but again, self-awareness. I know me. And it's okay, sit down, talk it out, you, me. Y'all know I got different people I talk to, and she say her and her say her, and we have this whole conversation, but that's how I work it out. And it's like, girl, you're tripping right now. Go sometime I put myself on time. I'll go sit down because you somewhere out there right now. So before we continue, what we do, we take our commercial break and we have some people talking to us.
Reginald Brown says, aloha, beautiful ladies. It's been a while, but I found out that sometimes I have to actually work.
We appreciate you, Reginald.
Okay. Lady Dawn B said, good evening, HG family and Bravo Nation. Good evening, Lady Dawn
That's
B.
good Eve Dawn B. Lady Dawn B is on Thursdays night. So y'all can catch her on Thursdays at not 9 o'clock, 7 p.m.
Uh, Kathy said, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Kathy.
Good evening, Kathy.
And Torrance, I don't want to mess it up. Felder said, listening. We appreciate you
Hey
for
T.
listening.
Hey T. Okay, so let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving.
Well,
This is
I want to just pause
okay.
before we
Go ahead.
keep it moving to something that
Mhm.
you said when you talked about the movie. And immediately I thought about, you will create a sequel, right, of how this looks and what has happened. You got the trilogy happening in your head. But I also wanted to go back to something that I guess last week said, you know, learning how to defend the other person into yourself, because if that person has never shown you any of those actions or given you a reason to doubt, in this case him, but because of, let's say, our past hurt or my past hurt, I then give him the baggage that was never his to carry. And I thought that was, just going back from last week to this week, that I thought that was such an excellent point, that you need to know who that person is in front of you, and then compare it against the things that are building in your head, and then make a judgment call, opposed to, as you stated earlier, Ashley, building these stories, and then all of a sudden it's like, I know you did it. I feel it. It was a gut feeling. No, you need to go sleep. You need to go to sleep. You need to sit down, because you're experiencing past emotions. I had a former pastor that used to say, you will bleed on people who did not cut you.
Hmm.
So I just think that that was a really great point. So thank you.
Yeah. So when Coach Ebony said that last week, I was like, oh wow, that's good. That thing stuck. And to Elaine's point, what she said, she was in a relationship, and the guy she was dating at the time, he told her, "Why don't you defend me to yourself?" I was like, wow. We both said, "That's good.
That was good.
That's good. That's good." Okay, so let's move on to emotional support. So what we have as the definition is emotional support is the act of offering comfort, reassurance, and validation to someone, especially during times of stress and difficulties. The first question: how can partners effectively provide emotional support to each other during stressful times?
So there are so many ways that people can provide emotional support to their partners. I think that it's about us getting out of our own comfort zone to do it. And that goes back to love languages and things of that nature. But just off of the top of my head, I know that active listening is one. And this just includes giving someone your full attention when someone's sharing their feelings or concerns, being empathetic and understanding, um, being present, being mindful, being focused solely on them, not necessarily being on your phone if it rings or texting, but giving them eye contact, showing body language that you are interested in providing them with that emotional support, offering help, but no solutions. And I know this can be challenging for women because we are fixers. We want to make people feel better. We're nurturers. And so just offering help and no solutions and being a listening ear can be a form of emotional support. Affirmation and encouragement, and just creating a safe space for that person to express and be vulnerable with you at that time.
And that's good because I would even piggyback on that and add to that and say, listen and listen, not just to respond. A lot of times we listen just to wait to rebuttal. So, okay, get it out. But this is this, but that's not really active listening.
Yes. And that
So,
can
yeah.
take us somewhere else. I am like one of those people who has like been one of the persons who listens to responds. And instead of me listening to what my partner is trying to tell me, I'm focused more on, well, I didn't say it like that. The little things that can then take me to another place. And now we're talking about something that has nothing to do with what we came together to discuss. And you just realize, like, okay, maybe if I was listening to understand them and just was not focusing so much on the smaller things, then this probably could have been a productive conversation.
Yeah. And not coming in on a defense
Right. Right.
with guns are blazing ready. Like, as soon as he say, as soon as she say, I'm gonna let it rip, right? So it's not
Yes.
coming in that defensive posture, but
Yes.
really, like you said, being present, being there, being in the moment.
Yes.
So that's good. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So two, the question is, how do different attachment styles, that's something we talked about probably like 2 weeks ago,
Mhm.
such as fear of abandonment, impact the way people seek or give emotional support?
And so, since attachment styles are almost developed when we are younger, we this is something that could take a while for someone to figure out how to support someone in. And that just goes back to both of the people, one person actually, just depending on what the attachment style is, wanting to learn how to modify that attachment style, and the other person being willing to, I don't want to say conform, but almost get down on their attachment style level to better understand. And this makes me think about love languages. Um, and so the way I communicate may not be the same as the way someone else communicates. And it just goes back to educating yourself, getting to know your partner so that you can understand, okay, if this happens, then this is going to potentially make them feel like that I'm going to leave them. And so maybe I need to stay away from these trigger words. Maybe I need to stay away from certain conversations during certain times of the day. And so like I said, I think it goes back to just knowing your partner and educating yourself. And then your partner also being aware of those triggers and those attachment styles and them being not necessarily the most healthy, and trying to work to change them and to alter them to help better have an effective communication with their partner.
That's
That's
good.
good.
I just wanted to add, or I was thinking as you were speaking, I think one of the things is we have to learn. We often say, I'm grown enough to say or do what I want to do. But in the area of sometimes telling people what we need because it sounds crazy, you know, and if your partner is considered your safe space, then even if it sounds crazy to everyone else, if he or she, depending on where you are, in the relationship will understand that. And I think it's asking and also telling. So asking your partner, what is it that you need from me? And then telling them, what is it that I need from you? Which goes back to that whole communication piece, because two people are, I always think, in like when we talk about relationships, there are two kingdoms coming together, right? The way you were brought up, the way the other person was brought up, and now we're trying to merge these kingdoms together, but we're not being, and not all the time, we're not being transparent in the process of what we're going through. So thank you.
No
That's
problem.
a
That was
good
good.
point. Oh,
It
before
is.
we move on commercial break, you have some people in here rooting for you.
Hi, Lucy. So she said, hey, Auntie Elaine, and all listening as well. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so the next question, this is the last question for emotional support. What are some healthy ways to communicate emotional needs without feeling needy or burdensome?
I would say the first step is recognizing and validating your own needs. Self awareness before communicating with your partner, taking time to reflect on your own emotions and what you truly need. This will help you communicate effectively how you really feel. And self validation just reminds you that it's natural to have emotional needs. Everyone requires support, and kind of normalizes it so you don't go into it feeling like a burden. Also, using I statements, framing your needs by just focusing on how you feel rather than how your partner makes you feel. So instead of saying, you never spend any time with me, say, hey, I feel lonely when we don't spend any time together. I'd love to spend more time with you. Be specific and clear, choosing the right time, keeping the focus on connection and not demand. And as I'm talking about these, I just think back to what Dr. Elaine just stated, how communication plays a major role in all of these things. And so I think that as long as you're communicating effectively, then you will be able to communicate without feeling burdensome because you'll have all the right components. Like, when the best time is to speak to your partner. After a long day of work, maybe that night might not be the right time to talk about something that may bring tension on. And so just thinking about all the different variables that contribute to what would help invalidate those feelings of burdensome.
That's good. That reminded something you said reminded me. I saw a clip of Stefan speak because we do clips from him as well. We don't have live professionals on, so we play clips. And he was talking to about a fact that there was a couple that he was coaching, and the lady pretty much wanted her husband to spend more time.
Mhm.
she conveyed that to him. But when they were sitting there, he sat on one end of the couch and she sat on the other. So by the time they get back to him, she upset, but he was like, "What? I spent time. I was there." So he was saying, like, you have to communicate what you want. You was there, but you were still on the couch on the phone. You were there, but you was still, she wanted more intimacy, but she never said that. So communication is always key. Be very
Yes.
clear on your needs and what you want. And don't be afraid to say what it is you need from your partner, because if that's your partner, that should be your safe space. That should be your best friend. So you should be able to say what it is, and your partner should be able to give that to you.
Yep. That's
If
100%.
Yeah, I would like to add something. You talked about the self-awareness. I think that is so critical because a lot of times people are walking around not knowing who they are. And as a result, so they can't be self-aware because they don't know what they like and what they don't like. They know what they've conformed to. They don't know what they actually like. And I also thought when you talked about everyone needs emotional support, and I think that is so key. But many of us, and I'll speak for myself, you grow up in communities and we say, I don't need nobody. I was born by myself. I can die by myself. We go through this whole thing. So we have this, I like to call it the Lone Ranger syndrome, right? In our minds, I can do it all by myself. I don't need anyone. But if we go back to the Lone Ranger needed Tonto, so there was still someone there to assist in what was needed. So in being emotional aware, or being self-aware, I feel like this when you do this, or I feel like this when you say this. And it could have absolutely nothing to do with your partner, but it may be a trigger that you have from a past relationship, and being able to say that, like, this time of year I feel this way, and now they know
Mhm.
how to best handle you. And just, if I can give an example, um like, I know the month of August, how I feel about the month of August, because my mother passed away in August. So I'm aware, and I'll say to someone, around that time, and I think a lot of times we don't realize how we carry that trauma with us, right? And not that it was a bad thing, but if I'm telling you, or I'm allowing someone to know, this time of year is kind of sensitive for me, so I may be more distant because someone I loved is no longer here, or I may be a little more reserved because I'm reflecting on, my last moments, whatever that looks like. But if you don't tell anyone, it could look like withdrawal. It could look like you're seeing someone else. It could look like, as you talked about, Ashley, that story. Now the trilogy has begun, right? And it has nothing to do with, someone else. It has everything to do with that emotional state or trauma that you dealt with. And now you're trying to figure out how to navigate that space. And if you feel supported because you were honest and you're self-aware, then that person can support you emotionally without even saying a word. Because you just may need, and I'll call it the ministry of presence. I don't need you to do anything. I just need you to.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes.
That's good.
Mm.
Ash, you have something you want to say behind that?
Well, I agree 100%. I'm just listening, and
Yeah.
that's hitting home.
Mm. Yeah. Let's see, Kathy.
She says, dealing with self first. Why am I feeling like I am feeling? Absolutely. And then if I can
Go
even just,
sit down with yourself somewhere.
but I would also add to that and say, not why am I feeling the way I'm feeling, but where am I feeling it? Because our body indicates something to us. All of a sudden I get a
Mhm.
headache, or all of a sudden my shoulders are tight. All of a sudden I get this thing in my stomach. When this happens, because now I'm in tune with how I'm feeling mentally and how my body is reacting to a thing. Wait, stop the
Fred,
press.
let,
We have a super chat. Ashley, you don't know. That means when we get a super chat, everything else stops so we can go to the super chat. So excited. Bravo with Sheila. This is really wonderful. Niece came ready. So very, so very proud to be her aunt. So we got a super chat because you niecey poo.
I love you too.
Yes.
Reginald said, Dr. Elaine, I understand exactly what you are saying because I drove through that myself. Absolutely.
Yeah, and T had been said 100. Okay, this is cool. So let's keep it moving right along.
So we're going to
Co-host,
talk
you want
about
me to read it
balance.
next?
Yes. Balancing independence and togetherness. I think this is good. The definition: balancing independence and togetherness refers to the ability to maintain one's own identity, goals, and interests while fostering a strong connection and sense of unity with a partner. So that's the definition. For the one, how can couples create space for both personal growth and shared experiences?
I think this is something that a lot of couples struggle with, just because sometimes you have people who think that once you get in a relationship, it's just supposed to be with about you and your partner, and they don't set aside time. But then, where's that friend support? Where are those social supports? And so, one thing I know that I encourage people to do is communicate openly, communicate their needs openly, and so discussing personal time. Both people should feel comfortable enough to express their need for personal space without fear of hurting the other person's feelings. Being open about the needs to help avoid miscommunication. So, for example, I love spending time with you, but I also need some time for myself to recharge. Also, clarifying shared time preferences. So, just similarly, discussing activities that you want to do together with your partner. And so, I think that the next thing would be setting healthy boundaries, and just respecting each other's independence. One partner may need quiet time to read or work on a project, while the other may want to meet out with friends. And so, whatever the other person chooses to do during their personal time, respecting that and allowing them to do it. Being intentional about scheduling time for both personal and shared activities. And so, you don't want to be more intentional about scheduling personal time and then forget about the relationship, and then vice versa. And lastly, supporting each other's individual's interest. So if your partner enjoys football and you don't like football, sometimes you have to take one for the team and sit through a football game. That to that partner could look like spending time. And so I think, to speak to what Coco said earlier, you know, sometimes we may not, it may not, if we don't communicate what we need, then we won't get it. And so if your partner is telling you, hey, I like to do this, then that's your time to spend with them doing what they like, and vice versa.
I think that is so important in relationships, not losing who you are.
Hmm.
It's okay to have a partner. It's okay to be married, but don't lose who you are. If you're that person that needs time to recharge and you need to be by yourself for a couple of minutes, it's okay to convey that message. I don't know if y'all remember, but I think it was the State Farm with the she shed. Yeah, her she
Yes.
shed. I'm her. I need a she shed. I totally need a she shed. I need a she something. And not even that. My future husband, he may need, guess what? The man cave. I'm cool with all that. I'm
Yes.
down. Let's get a password. Whatever that password look like, we know where we at right now. He ain't feeling me right now. I'm gonna go on over there. She ain't feeling me right now. I'm gonna go on over there. I think it's so important not to lose your individuality when you get with somebody.
Yes.
If I can just add to that, something you said, I think about my parents. They were married for 34 years but until death did them part. And my mother used to watch baseball. They would sit down and I would feel like they watched baseball. I promise you, after my father passed away, I never saw my mother watch another baseball game. And I was like, well, I thought she liked that sport. So when you said take one for the team, if that meant that was their way of spending time together, then she did. So I'm grateful for those lessons to go, okay, because we're like, I don't want to do that. He could do that. And I'm like, no, no, no. I may not understand. And maybe I'll ask you a million questions and you might say, just could you just go over there? Because I got to answer all these questions. But because I want to know, I want to understand the game. If but I think that that was so key. And to you, you said, like, your individual time, your couple time, and then I say, even if you had a family, your family time, and being okay with what that looks like. And if that trust and communication is there, then it's okay if he's taking a boys trip or she's taking a girls trip, and whatever. It's not like, oh, going back to that story and those sequels and trilogies playing in your head. Oh, I'm gonna jump on the plane and I'm gonna surprise them. Oh, they out there doing something. And being okay with, you know what, he's over there or she's over there, and I trust my partner that they know how to behave.
That's key, the trust factor. That is so
Yeah.
key.
Um, okay. Question number 2. What are some strategies for maintaining individual? Did I read that already? No. Okay. Sorry.
No, I just
What are
asked
some
you.
strategies for maintaining individual identity while fostering a deep connection with a partner?
I think this ties like into the question before, but I know that respecting the need for solitude is going to be the biggest key. So, just normalizing that alone time is healthy, understanding that needing alone time does not mean disinterest in the relationship. Making sure you're engaging in interests that you had prior to getting into the relationship. Sometimes, we stop doing certain things that we once did that we enjoyed when we get into relationships. And this goes for males and females. And, you become a parent and then you're just working, and next thing you know, y'all are just roommates because nobody is doing anything outside of all the family things, all the husband and wife things, but just remembering who you were prior to. So it's knowing that it's okay to be a husband, a wife, and a woman first, or and a man first, and somebody that still enjoys going to do things for themselves to take care of themselves. And just making sure you're intentional about your self-care, taking it serious just as much as you take other people's self-care. Because I've noticed lately that people will encourage other people to do self-care, but they won't take it serious for themselves. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think a constant reminder while you're in that relationship or situationship, whatever it may be, I have to take care of myself first. And this looks like X, Y, and Z.
That's
Well, I
great.
would venture to say if you're in a situationship, you're not taking care of yourself, but I digress. Go ahead, co-host, because a situationship, that's just something totally different. You
Yeah.
okay, go ahead.
It's a
That's going somewhere
situation.
else.
A
That's going
partnership.
somewhere.
A
Situation. That's
partnership. A partnership. Not a situation, a partnership. So I don't want to just speak to married people, but just couples as well, even
Hmm.
people who aren't married.
Well,
Okay.
we thank you. But before I read the next question, we have like 14 people watching and only 7 likes. So we're going to need you to hit that like button. It's free 99. So let me show you, show them co-hosts how they supposed to hit the button.
Mash
Just
it
like
up.
that.
Mash it up.
Like, click, share. And if you really want to see me smile, give us a super chat.
It
Yep.
looks just
See?
like that. One of those things just like that.
Don't forget, and Reginald's even helping us out. He says, "Don't forget to share." And I do say this is really good
I think he
information.
had that for something else, but it came in right on time.
Okay, well, I'm going to interpret that that's what it means. No, is that just share, because this is great information to help people where it's not one side or the other. It's a balance to say, what is it that we need to do as grown folk if you're in a relationship, if you want to get into a relationship, how to communicate differently than you did when you were, you know, 19 versus even in your 20s, 30s, to have a healthy relationship. All right. T says, I'm loving this show. Y'all are so amazing. Thank you, T. Can't believe
Thank
I
you,
missed the
T.
other episodes. Well, T, let me give you some tea. You can go back and watch the others and like, share it, and subscribe. And we thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, the last question: how do you help partners who feel too dependent on each other restore their sense of independence?
I try to encourage open communication, encourage them to discuss the feelings of dependency. Sometimes the other partner doesn't know and doesn't notice what it is. And so just making them aware of it and encouraging them to discuss that openly and validating their emotions, because if they're feeling the dependency, if dependency is a characteristic of theirs, then it's most likely was instilled as a child. Supporting personal growth and hobbies. And so encouraging individual activities. I think that people who have that trait of dependency, they may fear being alone. They may fear doing things by themselves. And so just encouraging them to take baby steps. You know, you may not be ready to go to the movies by yourself or to take a trip by yourself, but why don't you try going to the mall by yourself or try going to dinner by yourself? And encouraging them to foster healthy boundaries. And so, um, for example, just saying it's important that we both have time to focus on ourselves too. I think that some time apart can help us grow as individuals. And so I think a lot of it has to do with communication and what you say that could help someone feel more comfortable about what they're going to do. And so for someone who's very dependent, I think going into it with ease is what's going to help them feel more comfortable and normalizing that it's okay that you are this way. And I think that this can improve our relationship if we start doing things separately for a little bit.
That's good. And before we move on, I just want to piggyback on something my co-host was saying in terms of the show and the platform. This is the place where we seek to bridge the gap between men and women because women often sit around in a cluster talking about men, and men sit around talking about women, but we're not talking to each other. So this is why we're here, men and women, and this is the space. Like we said, we get into these deep conversations just to bring some healing and some clarity and some understanding. We do have men come up on a platform, and maybe some will come up tonight. We shall see as we move on. So as we transition, this is handling transitions and challenges. So the definition we have is transitions and challenges in relationships include major life changes, such as moving, job changes, becoming parents, or facing health issues. The first question is how can couples prepare for and navigate major life transitions? For an example, marriage or partnership, adjusting to life with a partner, sharing responsibilities, and or building a shared future together.
So I first off encourage people to go to therapy before opposed to waiting app to after. So some people feel like they can't go to couples therapy until something happens. And so if you're proactive, you don't have to be reactive. Sometimes this can help put ease on these conversations, and these conversations are completely normal. These are things that should be talked about at the beginning before you even get into a serious relationship. And I think that we've normalized surface conversations so much that we don't even get to this point. And so, you know, when you're dating, it's what do you do? What's your favorite color? What do you like to do for fun? And it's like, we need to be talking about, you know, what religion do you practice? How many kids do you want? Do you even want to get married? And I think that would eliminate a lot of these uncomfortable conversations when they come up. And so I encourage people to talk about these transitions before they happen. That way, when they arise, it won't be any miscommunication because you already know what I want. We're being intentional. We're both on the same page. And so pretty much addressing it at the beginning opposed to at the end, or and if it's too much of a challenge to do it with just you and your partner, going to therapy and having somebody kind of help paraphrase and summarize for you, because I know communication can be a challenge when having these type of conversations.
And that's so funny, the point you made, what's your color? Always surface level topics, but it's so easy. And I don't have the statistics on it, but it's so easy for couples to engage in sex before getting the real information. And then after that, your feelings are all tied up. And then, oh, I ain't know that about you. Well, had you known, we had the conversation, but nobody wants to have this serious conversations to get to the root of why we're even trying to be together, or what may be my trigger, what may be your trigger, whatever that looks like. But it's so easy to go and have sex, which
If I
muddies the water even more.
right, and I think when you do that, just to kind of add on what you're talking about, like you said, there's the missed opportunity to say, do I really want to be with this person? And and I'm not going to say women and men may feel the same way, but I'm speaking as a woman. A woman may feel, oh, I did it now, so I'm stuck. I don't want to leave and go to somebody else, so I'll compromise, opposed to having that conversation with your partner and saying to him, these are some things, this is what I need, or these are my values. And as you talked about, this is, I'm a Christian, you're a Muslim. This is probably not going to work. You know what I mean? And I know people, oh, it could work. Well, it may not work for me, because my theory is, it says, as for me and my house. So we going to need to
You
serve the
shall.
Lord. Right.
Mhm.
But now if that works for somebody else, that's fine. Um, like, how are you about saving money? What does that look like? What's your credit score? Like, what are we
Mhm.
building? You know, are we building a bear, or are we gonna build a
A
we
mess.
gonna we gonna build and be able to see where we see one another. And if my goal looks different than your goal, or better yet, where do you want to live ultimately? Where do you want to retire? Well, I want to retire in Africa. Well, I want to visit Africa, but I don't want to live there. So we need to answer those questions first to say, are we in alignment?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because now if you done crossed over, and as you said, now you're intimate, you're like, well, I guess I'm gonna go where he want to go. And now the kids are grown up, and you sitting across from a perfect stranger. And matter of fact, you don't even like him. You just like that one night. What's that old song? Last night changed it all, right?
Yeah, right,
Mhm.
right. That part. A whole lot of the all has been altered from the one night
Mhm.
instead of just
That's
having the
tough,
conversation and
right?
not talking about what color you like and what school you went to. Yeah,
And
okay.
what's your sign? You know. All right.
Yeah,
Bravo with Sheila. She says, say it. If you're proactive, you won't have to be reactive. Now, that's a word. Absolutely. And I think, especially
absolutely.
if we're looking at, Sweet said, yes, the older you get, you think to, or at least I think to myself, like, first of all, I would tell people, I got one marriage in me. One more. I done it once.
One more, that's
I
it.
got one more. That's it. One of us gonna die. That's how we getting out of this. That's it. One more. And that's also the reason to be selective with your partner, because you want to enjoy your life. It doesn't mean that you're going to agree on everything, but what it does mean is that, you know what, I made a right choice, because the choice you made in your 20s or 30s, depending upon when someone got married and if they were divorced, like myself, um, you want to make the right choice and say, you know what, I really like you. Like, people love people, but I say I love you, but if I like you, that's different, because there's a lot of people I love that I don't necessarily like.
Mhm.
Right, that part. That's true. I think Reginald laughing at you last night changed it all.
I don't know. I just had an old school rap moment.
Now you have that whole song in my head, but we're
Right.
gonna move on. So the next question says, what are some common emotional challenges couples face during transitions? For example, dealing with stress.
I would say communication breakdown, just difficulty expressing emotions during transitions, because partners can struggle to communicate their feelings, leading to misunderstandings or unmet emotional needs. Loss of identity, shifts in roles. For example, a stay at home parent may feel a loss of professional identity while their partner is working, and they may feel the other partner may feel the pressure of being the provider. So just struggling to adapt in that area. Emotional disconnect, growing apart. A couple may move to a new city, and that they may be focusing so much on adjusting to new jobs and routines that they forget to prioritize their own emotional connection. Grief and loss. And this is not talked about enough, but I see a lot of people who experience grief when they go into their new role of family or a marriage, because it's a major
Mm,
transition. Like, yeah, you guys were boyfriend and girlfriend and now you're married, or yeah, you were single, now you're in a relationship. A lot of people grieve their life. because it's a major transition. You are not able to do some of the things you weren't able to do. And so some people miss their freedom, their spontaneity that they once had when they were single. And so that can lead to resentment or frustration. And so, yeah, that's just a few that I can think off at the top of my head that I've seen in therapy.
If I
That's
can.
good. I just want to say one thing before you say co-host. I want you to know you're not alone. In the famous words of Michael Jackson,
T
T
said
said he
one
got one
more
more
thing.
marriage too. He got one more too, and that's it. So you are not. See, the men feel the same way. See, it's not just women, just one more. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I had to get that. I think that is so funny.
I see. I forgot what I was going to say. I got to get it out before I forget. It's coming into that stage of life. Um, what were we talking? You were saying you said something that I wanted to touch on.
Grief and
Um,
loss.
Grieving
oh, the
your
loss, and
probably.
I was thinking about that because I was thinking, like, especially for a woman, and again, speaking from a woman's perspective, when we get married, we lose our last name. You become a mom. I just
Mhm.
remember, after I got married, right, I was Mrs. So and so, right? And then when I had children, they started calling me so and so's mom. I was like, wait a minute, hold on, that's not a name. Aren't you so and so's mom? And I was like, aren't you so and so's wife? You know,
Mhm.
so I do. That is a real that's a real thing, and you have to be willing, especially when we first get married, we be like, my husband, my husband, my husband, my husband, my husband. Then after a while he just Jim, you know or Max, you know but there is that grief and that loss period to be able to say, am I feeling like I'm losing my identity? And not just in a relationship in terms of marriage, but even as you have children, or if then you become a caregiver, or there's so much that you have to be able to just grow and learn from. I also think in the aspect, as you get older, you know things you used to do so easily is not. I read this meme, and I'm being a little silly tonight. It's like you get up in the morning and they like, no, I'm not. Your bones go pop, and you go, no, I'm not popping, I'm just crispy. It's just another aspect
Not
of.
crispy.
Yeah, I saw that in a meme, and I said, that's good, I'm gonna use that. You're just changing, and
Mhm.
you need to be able to have someone who can change with you, because the life that you thought may look different than the one that you're actually living. And
Mhm.
if you have the right person with you, it doesn't matter, because you have a support system in anything that you do. So I thank you for those words of just helping us better understand.
Yeah,
And
that's
yeah, and
very.
it's good. It's what you said about being proactive going back there because I recently started therapy because I've been by myself for so long. But I do know I want to be married. So I
Mhm.
know that's going to be a major process for me to make that transition because I'm used to doing. I'm not like, what? Oh, I ain't gotta cook no dinner. I can eat a tuna sandwich. I can eat spaghetti if I want. I get a bowl of cereal if I want. If I don't even feel like eating, I don't have to eat.
Mhm.
But with a partner, now I'm not responsible, but it would be my duty to take care of my partner. So being proactive is so key. And even within being proactive, knowing yourself.
Mhm.
If I wasn't self-aware, I wouldn't know that I need help in this area.
Mhm.
Because for me, I'm fine. You think you're ready for it, then I had to sit down. Like, no, this would really be a coming together every day. What does that look like? So being proactive and again self-awareness is key because to Elaine's point, like he said, then he's Jim, and then sometimes like that ninja, you don't depending on where it be, but now you in the house with Jim and the ninja. So how do you navigate that water? Because you just can't walk away. You just can't stop speaking.
Right.
Right. So then it ties back into everything we've been talking about as far as trust and communication style and knowing love languages in the whole kit and caboodle. So that is so key.
And if I can
So
just
the
add,
that.
I'm sorry,
Mhm.
I think about this, and when I was younger, and again, because I was married before, you'd be like, oh, and this So please, I'm not male bashing. I'm just giving my example. I'd be like, oh, he's just so stupid or da 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 da. And one day it hit, well, if he's stupid, you Mrs. Stupid because you married, you know, and you have to realize, like, what am I doing in that? So all I will say, because I know Coach Pache wants to get married or whatever, it's basic for anyone. Choose wisely.
Yes, and
Mm-hmm.
have a support system, a good support system. And I say maybe two people that can give you some insight. I'm not opposed to having somebody who is divorced in my support system and somebody who's in a relationship, because I welcome all feedback as long as there's somebody I trust and they're genuine. But I think that the most common thing that I'm hearing these days is like that adjustment, that grief and loss. Like people feel like they have lost their identity once they have gotten in relationships and had babies and have had to stop doing certain things. And I think it's because people lack the self awareness. And so finding a good support system that normalizes, hey, you need to get out, continue to do things for yourself, and still be a mom and still be a girlfriend or a wife or whatever it may be.
And if I
Okay,
could
that's
just,
good.
I'm sorry, I just want to say this. I think to your point, people still have to know how to date. Like just because you got married, that doesn't mean you stop dating. You should still, I still want him to call me his girlfriend. And I still want to say I'm going out with my boyfriend. Yes, we have rings, but we still boyfriend and girlfriend. Because I think that's where it is. Because when people think marriage, it's like when they before they got married, she was bringing it. Now she got the house coat on and like, what you want for
Bonnet,
dinner? It's like, not who I
bonnet
married.
on and the slippers.
And the funny the bunny slippers and the onesie. Remember the little for like you put on the little kids and you zipped up
Mm-hmm.
to being, still being that girlfriend, still dressing up and still, catering, all of those things. But anyway, that's enough. Let's go.
Okay, commercial break.
Commercial.
Commercial break.
Sweet says, I agree. When people are honest and clear and what they want out of a relationship is key. That is being proactive in a healthy relationship. Absolutely. Reginald says, I don't have to ask this question. Talking about trust, how can men learn to trust again when they are trying to fix the relationship or make it work? It seems easier for women. So you are the Ashley. There you go. That question is for you.
I'd have to say, I
Yes.
think that it's normalized for women, but it's not easier. Women just wear their feelings on their sleeves. And so I feel like men want to forgive, and you can, but there's an ego associated with men. And so I think they have it a little more hard when it comes to, okay, I'm going to forgive my woman and we're going to move on. Because then what does that say about their ego? Especially when you've been raised in a household where you've not seen that. And so that's why I'm all about healthy conflict, seeing people have healthy disagreements when kids are in two parent households. But just to speak to that, it's not any easier for a man than it is for a woman. It's just normalized for women to forgive. It's just talked about more. But I think there are enough podcasts out here today with these men that are being vulnerable and open and who are saying, "Hey, I'm riding out with my wife. If something goes wrong, then we're gonna get through it." And so I think it just depends on who you're getting the information from, honestly, Reginald. But it's
And that's
normalized.
a good point.
That's good.
Oh, they talking. They wanna.
Sweet says, keep it spicy. Yes. T says, you got to keep it spicy. Boy, this just turned
Got the
into a whole
spice
nother
going. Whole
conversation.
nother, it's a whole nother show in a minute. If we keep going down this road, we're gonna be somewhere else. So keep in mind what you said in terms of men in podcasts, because I'm gonna
Mhm.
show something in a minute. But the last question: what advice do you have for couples dealing with unexpected crisis, such as illness or financial hardships?
Communication. I will have to say communication changes throughout the relationship. But as long as you and your partner can have an effective conversation and communicate effectively how you feel and actively listen and be empathetic and be mindful, I feel like any conversation can be had. Um, and just going back to some of those components, knowing the right time when to have the conversation, assessing, does this person look like this is a nice time to address this? I know sometimes my friends may say, hey, can you go out? And I'll be like, all right, we can go hang out here. We can go have dinner. And then my coworkers may say, hey, let's go do brunch. And I'm like, okay, look, I'm gonna have to wait until about 2 days to ask, and kind of tell him, hey, I'm going to brunch too, because I want to make sure it's not looking like I'm going out all the time, and I also want to make sure I am having my autonomy and doing my own thing and having time with my friends. And so I think people know when to assess, like, okay, this is a good time to talk about this with my partner. But communication, I would say, would be the best like thing to address all of those issues, because without it, you really have nothing.
Yeah.
And can I think, especially if we're talking about in the realm of, and I'm going to say marriage, right? We need to get back to pillow talk,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because when you're at rest and you're having, when I say, more relaxed, like the day is done, it's like, hey, can we chat about this, or da 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 da, and it's knowing how to approach. And I especially say this as a Black woman, because sometimes we can come across and it's like, did you just say what? And you thought you was going to get. And and I go back to, again, my mother was always so soft spoken.
Mm.
She knew exactly how, the food was laid out. Her tone was always consistent. I'd never heard my mother yell. Tone was consistent, and I never heard her complain.
Mhm.
And I was like, I mean, years later, I'm like, because she knew
Mhm.
how to talk.
Mhm.
She knew how to. She
It.
understood who she married, and she understood. I often say, if you with someone, like, you takes you 4 years to go to college, right? If you complete. So if I've been with you 4 years, I got a degree. I got a bachelor's degree. If I've been with you 6 years, I got a master's. If I got so whatever your name is, just call your name and put ology at the back. I have a degree in that, the study of you. And that's what the partners should be doing with one another, in my opinion. You should have a degree in Elaineology. You know me well enough to know this is what she would do, or this is what she wouldn't do.
Mhm.
That's good.
Mm.
And yeah, both make valid points. And before I play the clip,
Kathy says, you are funny, Dr. Elaine. The onesies. Yes, don't put the onesies on with the bonnet. Right. And Reginald said, don't forget that bonnet. Just saying. And then be talking about why you don't love me. Because you look a hot mess.
yes, sizzling mess. So what we're gonna do right now, I'm gonna play a clip, and while we play the clip, I am going to drop the link for any men that want to come on and chime in. And let's listen to this because it alludes to something Ashley said and something Elaine said.
Moment in time where I felt like you were difficult to deal with. But I would ask myself, like, why does she always want this from me? Why does she want that? Why does she complain about this? Until I had a certain shift in my perspective. And I want everybody listening to understand this, that things and people are only difficult when you don't know how they work. The moment I decided to become a student of you, the moment that I had the desire to understand and respect who you were at your core, you stop being difficult. When you understand your partner, you will start to operate in a different way because you understand the triggers. You understand why they respond to certain things in a certain way. So you start to handle them with more care. And when you take the time to really get to learn your partner in that way, man, your partner goes from being difficult to being a blessing.
Thoughts, and
Okay.
thoughts.
I love
It
it.
was on point.
Right
I
on
love it.
point, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
And I think that's it, because I mean, I'm sorry, Ashley, but it's
No.
like, in my mind, if I love you and you love me, or you want to learn to love me, or I want to learn to love you, I become a student of you,
Mhm.
right? I know when you cough, and I'm gonna use why did I get married? Remember?
get married too. Mm-hmm.
Right. She was
Marcus.
like, if his heart beats at, she knew him. She was like, and when he's lying, he does this. When he does this, and that's the extreme. But what I'm
Mhm.
saying is, if you think about, if I have chosen you and you have chosen me, then I need to study you, that no one could ever tell me something about you that I go, that's not his character. I know
Mm-hmm.
better. Or you could look at people like, if he cheated, it sure wouldn't be with her.
Mhm.
That ain't, was he drunk? Was he, now you gonna help him out because you be like, that's not him, or vice versa. He'll go, no, that's not her. Or if she said it, she didn't mean it that way, right? Because but the Bible says love covers.
Mhm.
So if you study me enough, even if I said something, you'll cover me, and then you'll address it later and go, babe, that might have not been the best way to say what you wanted to say. And the
Mm-hmm.
person will receive it and be grateful that you didn't expose them and
Mhm.
say, he or she covered me in the midst of that. So I do believe in that. If you choose whomever you choose, or whoever chooses you, you need to make the commitment to study one another, to make sure I know. And we think about, everybody thinks of the know from the intimacy. Oh, I know. No, if you get to know me, heart, mind, when that piece of, or that portion of intimacy in marriage or whatever happens, I think that that makes your experience with the person all the more the better, because they know you and you feel safe with him, he feels safe with you. And there is no, it's like, it's us against the world, not us fighting the world, fighting inside, fighting outside. You rather leave your house for peace than to come home to peace.
Mhm.
And that's actually, you want to say something
Oh
before
no,
I
I agree
piggyback on?
100%. I'm
So
taking
yeah,
this in too.
what you was as far as what you were saying with when you was talking about studying and you saying knowing each other, it takes us as individuals when we get into these relationships to be completely vulnerable,
Mhm.
naked, unashamed, show the scars, show the broken places so that person can cover you.
Mhm.
Now I know every aspect of you. Don't just give me pieces of you or the surface level of you. And then you're expecting me to know something, but you never told me this.
Mhm.
So, and people, I think for the most part, some people don't understand that there's strength in being vulnerable. There is so much power and strength in being vulnerable. So, to
Mhm.
even get to that study stage, us as individuals, we have to take off everything
Yeah.
and
It's the
be
only way to do
present and
relationships.
allow you to see.
Can I just want to add to that and say, I think one of the things we also have to be careful in, yes, I believe in that, but in our vulnerability is being vulnerable with the right person. And that comes with time.
Oh,
Because I've
absolutely.
so many times, people, let's say you want something so bad, so you just go in full throttle, and the person is like, what? Because that's your desire. That's not the other person's desire. And you need to ask. And I go back to something you said earlier, Ashley. Instead of asking people, what's your favorite color? What's your zodiac sign? What's the best dance move you ever had? I need to ask you, do you want to get married?
Mhm.
And if he says no, ladies, do not think you're going to convince him
Yeah.
that, well, if I do this, he gonna marry me. No, that man said no. So no is no. And
Mhm.
or if he says yes, then you go, okay, at least now he qualifies for us to have this. It doesn't mean that you two are going to get married, but at least if it turned into something, that is going to turn into something, opposed to him saying no and you're like, well, he fun. Well, if you just want to have fun, be clear that's what you having is fun, and that's it.
Absolutely. And to your point, when I was speaking in terms of when you're with somebody
Yeah.
to be safe, to be vulnerable with, not totally in the dating stage, just lay everything out. So this is what, and you're like, okay, what is going on right now?
No,
So
I
yes,
agree.
I
I
totally
agree.
agree with that. Once you get
Yeah.
into that space and you know that person is your partner, then you're vulnerable. And then to your point, Elaine, absolutely. And this goes both ways. When a man or woman say, this is not what I want, respect it, right? But if you choose to stay, know that whatever feelings you develop, whatever comes out of that, that's on you. And you can't then in turn around and be mad at the person or resent the person because the person was honest. I respect honesty all day, every day, because they told you from the jump. So again, like we talked about before on the show, you said something like us as women, we create these stories. He said this, and to your point, I'm going to change him because I'm going to do this way, and I'm going
The
to do.
trilogy.
If he said no, it means no. If he said he does not want to be married, he does not want to be married. So if you choose to waste 2 and 3 years, that's on you. You don't have the right to get mad at that man because he told you. That's
And better
on
yet,
you.
if I can say, even if he didn't tell you that, actions will tell you
Well, you
where
can
he
figure that
is.
out.
Right.
Yeah.
Because anybody who I always say my dad and Pache has heard me say this. I remember my dad saying, he said, it does not take a man long to know if you're the one. He says now he may not propose to you right away. He may not, but in his mind, he already knows you have the possibility of being the one. If not, all he's going to do is just, yeah, I'll think about it. Yeah, I thought about getting married, or, oh, yeah. And a lot of times we hold on, women, to the chance of like, well, maybe he'll just change his mind one day, or maybe no. If
No.
it doesn't take anybody 10 years to figure out if you're the one, 10 you done wasted 10. And again, if that's your choice, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But if you're holding on to the hopes of marriage after 10 years, somebody wasted 10 good years of your life that you could have been with someone else making your own life.
And to the point, you don't get to get mad at that woman or that man if you choose to stay because that's the choice you made. Now, if you stay knowing all of that, that's fine. If you can handle it, if that you have the capacity to handle it, that is fine. And whenever you feel like moving on, move on. My point is don't resent the woman and don't resent the man when they were clear, concise, upfront, and told you where they're at in this relationship.
Kathy said that video was on point. Bravo, what Sheila said, we cooking tonight.
We're cooking tonight. So this was amazing, amazing, amazing. Ashley, do you have anything you want to say? Let me see if anybody's talking to us. I think we're kind of quiet over here right now. Do you have anything else you want to add before we close out?
No, I was able to
Or
get.
let me say this. We're going, what we do when we close out, we let the guests have the final word. I say something, Elaine says something, and you are our guest, so you will have the final word. So anything before the final word?
No, I guess I'll
Okay.
save my final word for the final word.
Okay.
Reginald said, enjoyed the show. I'm going to put the I don't work hard memo out again. they think, I guess I forgot. Miss y'all family. We thank you, Reginald.
We missed you too.
Lady Dawn B said, great show. Thank you.
Thank you, and stick around because her information is coming up next. I want to say thank you to everybody that chimed in. Thank y'all for always coming in and supporting us. And again, self-awareness is key. I hope you had the goggles on in the Love Lab. You got the information and the tools you needed. If you're looking to be in a relationship or if you're in a relationship, remember it's on YouTube. You can always go back and watch. And our motto here at Harlem Girls Inc. is there is more in you.
All right. My last word is I got one more. No, I'm just
One more marriage and that's it.
one and done. I got one more.
One
No,
more.
I would say be encouraged, be yourself, be vulnerable with the right person, and most of all, pray. Pray that God gives you the direction that's needed so that the person that comes into your life will be exactly what you prayed for. And delay does not mean denial.
Okay. I want to thank both of y'all for having me on this platform and everyone that engaged and asked questions. I, too, was able to take away a lot from both of what Coach Pache said and Dr. Elaine Sanders. So thank you for inviting me. And I'll just say, keep it moving.
Keep it moving. We thank you. We thank you. And we thank you all once again for being here with us. Don't leave because we have her information coming up. We have information for you all to take in case you need help, therapy, coaching, need to go lay on somebody. It's all going to come up